subways are for sleeping, and so are so many other places.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Morgan. I'm the virtual producing artistic director of the Virtual York Theater Company. And this is the 20th edition of the York Theater's Show and Tell series, which revisits notable York Theater Company productions and brings the people who made them happen back together for a virtual reunion. We've celebrated shows such as Closer Than Ever, Enter Laughing, Desperate Measures, Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, Merrily We Roll Along, Tomfoolery, Taking a Chance on Love, Roadside, and Anyone Can Whistle, and even more. You can find all of these on our YouTube channel. Subscribing to our YouTube channel costs absolutely nothing and does great things for both of us. You will be able to access all of our events simply and easily, and it helps build the York Theater's following in today's essential world of social media. Something called a pandemic tried to interrupt the York's 50th anniversary celebration, but we figured out that this series is a great way to continue the celebration of our history. We're delighted to share these shows and the people who created them with you. Our plan is to revisit our production of Sweeney Todd, otherwise known as Teeny Todd, in January after we ring in the new year. More on that and other shows in the series, such as Rothschild and Sons, A Doll's Life, Texas in Paris, and more. Various other virtual events will be happening throughout the coming months. Our musical theater training program under the direction of Jimmy Ludwig will premiere virtually on January 14th. Nancy Ford and Mimi Turk's Blue Roses, the musical adaptation of Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie, will be part of our 2021 programming. More on that later and other highlights of our upcoming season. We just wrapped up a highlight of our fall season, Broadway's Great American Songbook, an online cabaret series hosted by Michael Feinstein and featuring weekly performances from all sorts of amazing performances from Alton Fitzgerald White to Lilias White, with all sorts of other wonderful people sprinkled in between. The series culminated on December 21st with our holiday gala, which featured all of our cabaret performers and many more special guests. Please remember that your donations are essential in keeping our pandemic programming happening. We want to keep these events free, and to do that, we depend on your generosity. Also, don't forget that throughout the program tonight, you can type questions or comments into the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer them when we find the time. The show we are celebrating tonight, Subways Are for Sleeping, was presented in our Musicals in Mufti series in 2018 as part of our Julie Stein series. We have reunited members of the cast and the creative team for tonight's discussion, including our music director and the director. Now I'd like you to meet my cohort and co-host, Charles Wright, our resident theater historian, who is writing a book about the first 50 years of the York and who also happens to be the co-president of the Drama Desk. Charles?
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going back to the 1961-62 Broadway season with Subways Are for Sleeping by Julie Stein, Betty Comden, and Adolph Green. The show is inspired by a collection of character sketches by Edmund G. Love, also called Subways Are for Sleeping. Love, a magazine writer who'd been homeless in New York City for a time, wrote about people who, though homeless, managed to fit into society, dressing respectably, supporting themselves with various jobs, and passing as ordinary. The show was radically rewritten out of town, but the show actually ran for 205 performances at the St. James Theater, and it was directed by Michael Kidd and featured Carol Lawrence, Sidney Chaplin, Orson Bean, and Phyllis Newman. Newman was married to Adolph Green, of course, and she won a Tony Award for her performance in Subways Are for Sleeping. In fact, she beat out Barbra Streisand in the featured actress category for the Tonys that year. So Jim, I'll turn it back over to you, and we'll say a little more about the history of the show later.
Well, thank you, Charles. Yes, we'll get back to all of that. It's a kind of fascinating show and story. Stuart, I was trying to think as we were leading up to this, how we came to do this. Was it your suggestion? We were doing a Julie Stein series. Were you the person who said, let's do subways?
Oh, absolutely not. I didn't
Oh.
want to do it. I remember it was between, you wanted me to consider doing Sugar or Subways. And I didn't really want to do it, but then because I had so many problems with, what was it about and who are the leads and what's going on and what's the story? And then you had me talk to Phyllis and she agreed with me. She said she's always thought exactly those things and maybe we could rectify that. And that was enough for me. I went, yep,
Well,
let's try.
Let's get around to everyone we have with us. But one thing I remember early on, when I took over the York, when Janet Walker passed away, we did a number of shows working with Betty Comden and Adolph Green, and they became they just loved being there. We did wonderful work with them. Doll's Life was the first thing we worked with them, a revised version of that. And we did Fade Out, Fade In, and we did Hallelujah Baby, the original version. We did several shows. And somewhere in there, I said to Betty, now we should do Subways Are for Sleeping. And she said, I'd prefer you don't do that because we never solved the book on that one. And so I just thought it would never happen. And then talking with Phyllis about this and Stuart, when Phyllis said, you can do it, I have to be involved, the book has to be rewritten, and it cannot be done without my involvement. Knowing that Stuart and Phyllis were on board to take that task on, made it all possible, and it ended up being a really wonderful experience. Let's hear from everyone. Our music director, David Hancock Turner, is sitting in a subway car of his own design.
That's right. I'm on the N train right now. No, I'm not.
Where
I'm
are
on
you?
Zoom.
Yeah, let's
I'm
hear
on Zoom.
from everyone who you played, where you are today, what you've been up to in recent months, and since the show, and a favorite memory, perhaps. David?
So I'm in Astoria, Queens right now. I've been here for a while. I'm working on some stuff, some trunk stuff for previous shows that I've been doing during this pandemic. But the subway meeting here is a great memory. It just makes me think about how important the overture is. Why was the overture to Subway so great? Why was Phil Lang so inspired to create such an unbelievable work of music? It's because the music of this show is deep. It's profound. And that is a sort of mystery because the show does have problems, but maybe our attraction to it is due to that sound that Julie Stein tapped into. The lyrics are great, but there's something, as a music director, I should focus on the music and playing the songs. I don't know how I can describe it, is something of it's bewitching. It's a trance. It lures you in. There's something about New York City. Maybe it's about something about the sadness of a city and also the potential of a city. But I think there's maybe a sadness at the core of the story that is there. And maybe that sadness is more in the music than it is there in the book, but it's quite beautiful. And it was such a joy to be part of this production. I love working with everyone. That's all I got for now. Huh.
Thank you. And Stuart, we didn't hear where you are, where you're talking to us from.
I'm in California. I'm in Hollywood, and that's where I am. And what else am I supposed to say? Yes, I'm here. I've been here since March 18th, and I still have my apartment in New York.
And it's just sitting there.
It's just, no, I have well, our roommate is there. And I'm here. And what else? Oh, I was the director, yes, and adapter, I guess I can say that. And my favorite memory is how easy everything was once I got over being intimidated by Phyllis.
Yes. We'll get to more of those stories in a minute. Eric Morris, Elise Lewis. who happen to be married and were the leads in the show.
We do happen to be married, and we were indeed the leads of the show. My name's Eric William Morris. I played Tom Bailey in the show. It's funny you're asking a group of actors what they've been up to for the past 9 months, because I think you're gonna get a lot of the same responses of like, yeah, we're hanging in there. But so yeah, we've been hanging in there in Astoria, Queens, right down the street from David Hancock Turner. I fell in love with the score as well. Julie Stein's music is absolutely beautiful, and specific memories of it will come back to me. Like we'll be around the apartment and I'll just come in and be like, right under your eyes. Like a lot of the time things will pop into my head, and in a profound way too, not just a funny way, but I have many memories of standing in the wings and through the whole run of the show, just having to go back and watch things I wasn't in, because I was charmed. I was absolutely charmed by the show. And so that's a general memory, but a specific one. And also acting with my wife. Take it away.
My name's Elise Lewis, and I had such a wonderful time working on the show. It was awesome to do the show together. I feel like since that time we've gotten to, we met performing together. We met in Mamma Mia many years back, opposite each other as Sophie and Sky in 2010. And that's how it all began. But we hadn't had a chance like we had in the last few years to really perform together in that way, especially with such incredible material like that. I felt like it was a really magical show for us. I loved singing Comes Once in a Lifetime. That was a favorite number. And also, while I was looking at the program, right before we opened this show, I saw that my dear friend Ron Stratton was in the original cast, and Ron worked at Cap 21 during the time that I was in undergrad. He worked at the front desk. He always had a kind word. He always put a smile on all of our faces, made us who were moving here to New York feel at home instantly. And I felt in a way seeing his name was kind of like Ron getting in touch. He's since he passed on in the last decade. And so it felt like a little message from him, kind of having it come full circle and being able to do this show. So right now we're just continuing to create. Can't wait to be back in a room with people. And it was a really wonderful time at the York working on Subways Are for Sleeping.
Lovely, lovely. Gina, what's up with you?
Oh, I am homeschooling my life away and doing recordings in my closet. Super fun over here, let me tell you. But we're managing.
And where is over here?
We're in Washington Heights, New York. And I love this little neighborhood. It's great. We got so many parks and ways to stay sane. I had the honor of playing Martha Vale, and it was very intimidating knowing that Phyllis Newman was a part of the whole process and watching me right here. And she just, won a Tony, just, over Barbara Streisand. But my favorite memory, aside from doing the show, because what a great part. I mean, to get to wear a towel for a whole show, playing a big character like Martha Vale. I mean, she was just the best character ever. But my favorite memory was opening night, trying not to notice that Phyllis Newman was right there. And afterward, she was talking to me and I was like, oh God, here it comes. What's she gonna say? And she said she couldn't have been more kind, more supportive. And she was like, you were absolutely fabulous, but, and I was like, oh God, here it comes. And she was like, the towel is too long. It is not risque enough. So immediately they went to work on my towel, making it more risque. And I was like, that's my kind of gal.
That no one has ever accused the Muftis of being over costumed. So that's a first, I think. That's great. That's a wonderful memory. Kilty Reedy, where are you and what's up and all of that stuff?
Well, first of all, I was in the ensemble of Subways Are for Sleeping, and I'm currently in the end of my first week of quarantine in Sydney, Australia, where I'm going to be joining, I'm going to be joining the company of Come From Away here as a standby. I was a standby on the US tour, and it ended in March along with everybody else's lives. And so I spent from March until a week ago in Midtown Manhattan. And then I got the call to come help them out down here. So I'll be here until August, which I'm very grateful for, to have a job. And I'm afraid about being in a room with people. I feel like I'm just gonna cry for a week and a half, you know? I'll cry for all of us. But they seem to be doing it the right way down here. So here's hoping. My memories of Subways Are for Sleeping, I think my best memory of doing the show is standing with the other boys and singing I'm Just Taking My Time and backing up Eric. I think that sound is so specific to the time that this was written. It reminds me, I've had an experience of doing the quintet in Bye Bye Birdie, and it has that same vibe. And they don't write them like that anymore. It was such a treat. And it's also interesting with the show, I've done a handful of other muftis, and this is the only show where I had somebody text me about 4 weeks ago and was like, thinking of you, listening to Subways Are for Sleeping. That doesn't happen. That didn't happen with Hollywood Pinafore. You know, it happened with this show. So I think people have an attachment to it.
I love David's comment about the unexpected depth of this show and the score. A show that had a troubled beginning or less than ideal beginning that people have sort of been, I think, nervous about for years, and to find out there is such heart and such depth. And it has to do with the writing on all levels, but particularly the Julie Stein score is just incredible. Stuart was talking about how many wonderful songs there are in it, and I agree. Let's take a minute and look at the trailer that we sent out about our production in 2018. Bring back some memories.
Other places, lofts and cellars and fire escapes, car lots, museums and excavations.
I thought it was absolutely terrific. I loved everything. The performers were great, music was great. It was really a happy show, and everybody had a good time.
Great show. I can't understand why more people haven't seen it in the past 50 years. Really fun.
I kind of grew up in the old school, golden age, loving that kind of musical theater, and you just really don't get to see that anymore. So it was really fun to get to go back in time.
There was sunlight and sky, beneath that marvelous day, I discovered a world, such a wonderful world.
I saw the original when I was a kid. I remember where I sat at the St. James Theater. Anything that Comden and Green and Julie Stein do, to me, is magic. The performers were excellent. The music, the score is great.
I was a shoe in a shoe in a shoe, and when I'm from Mississippi, back there where I come from, not Massachusetts, not Minnesota, but Mississippi.
Subways Are for Sleeping is amazing. The score is amazing, and Julie Stein is great. And Comden and Green's lyrics defies my expectations of a modern musical.
Delightful, charming, and puts a smile on your face.
Santa, jolly Santa, happy Santa, give the world a Merry Christmas. Be Kris Kringle, bells a jingle, what you'll bringle. Give the world a Merry Christmas, be a good old-fashioned simple fun.
I love the chance to get to see something that hasn't been seen in a long, long time. There's this like contemporary angle, but it's been around since the 60s, so it was fun to see how long these ideas have been around and see it on different characters and in different colors, and yeah, it's a blast.
Every day, just go along, dawn till sundown. Here's the rundown. Every day that comes once in a lifetime. Take each day and gather the rosebuds in it till each minute. Every day that comes once in a lifetime.
Songs are both beautiful and complicated. It still astounds me what can be accomplished in 5 days.
It makes you feel like we've seen the whole show. And so we can just go home now. But no, that was put together by our videographer, Matt Gurin, and our marketing director, Ryan Klink, had a lot to do with the shaping of that piece. And it just captured the production pretty wonderfully, I think. Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Where are you and what are you up to, and memories and all of that kind of stuff?
Okay, I'm in New York City at the moment. I got to spend a lot of time with Gina Milo because I was staying uptown on 181st Street. So I got to hang out with Gina, which was fun. We would take our walks with our masks, like after 7 o'clock, after the pots and pans. And that was fun. And then I got to do something that no other person got to do. I got to work, and I choreographed Godspell at the Virtual Theater Group. So that went well. And then I went to Chicago, the place, not the musical. I went to Chicago and I taught at Roosevelt University for the whole semester, and I just finished last week. And now I'm the associate artistic director of the York Theater also. So I've been working, kids. I don't know about y'all, but I've been working my butt off. I'm very happy. And now I'm unemployed, and I had the best time, because you know what it is about? It's Stuart Ross. It's his fault, because Stuart Ross is a very smart director. He puts people together who are amazingly talented, and they can stand by themselves, and we can take care of each other. And he just lets us go and do our thing. And when it's too much, he says, "That's too much, Jerry." And it's amazing. And that's the part I remember the most, because Kilty, David Engel and I were trying bits, it's like off stage. What about this? Trying to, but it was just great to be in a room full of all these people who knew exactly what they were doing. And Beth Glover, just professionals. And I'm gonna mute myself. That's all I have.
Don't mute yourself. David Engel, incidentally, really wanted to be a part of this, but he had an appointment that he could, a social event that he could not get out of. And, but he sends his love to everyone. Beth Glover, last but not least member of the cast.
Oh, yay. I'm so happy that I got this email. It just flooded me with memories and thinking about everybody and all of the tunes, and being in a picture frame with Kilty, singing some French, and being a Santa Claus and pretending to be drunk a little, just as an homage to Miracle on 34th Street. I have been teaching, Jerry. I've been a college professor too. So I have been working. Oh, thank you, God. Really great to connect with students. I think they really need it right now, especially creative students. They need this outlet for their, we all need it. Face it, we all need it. My favorite, I'm upstate. I'm in our house upstate. I feel so fortunate that we have this house upstate.
Whereabouts?
It's west of Lake Placid in Saranac Lake. People usually know Lake Placid before they know Saranac Lake. Really beautiful. We didn't get all the snow that you guys got. We usually have all the snow. I was thinking though, my favorite memory. Do you guys remember when we would sit around with Margaret Stein and Phyllis Newman, and it was like the best gossip sessions ever? It was just amazing. And Phyllis told this story. She said the night of the Tonys, she was seated next to David Merrick, and she had told us the hell he put her through to get the part. And she just wanted to tell him all of the time, well, I'm married to Adolph Green, but she didn't. She just kept going in and going in. But the night of the Tonys, she's nominated, they get to her category. And as she's getting up to get her Tony, she said that David Merrick said to her, "I voted for Barbra Streisand." I just got, he's known for being horrible, but that's horrible. And she just told it, and she just laughed. I just adored her. I adored her and I adored Margaret Stein. Everything about this was amazing. The history of the show, and then working with Stuart, coming up with all of these changes in the book. I just thought everything about it was absolutely fantastic. So thank you for letting me be a part of this night and sort of reliving it.
Absolutely. This is how many muftis you've done? This is your second or third?
My third.
Third. It was Take Me Along?
No, Take Me Along. That was an actual production.
That's right.
At Irish
Yes.
Fest, we were the first
That's
revival.
right.
No,
Right,
I did. I'm sorry. You did the set for us. Is that what you're going to say, Jimmy?
No. What are your other two muftis?
They're both with Stuart. The Marx Brothers thing, Minnie's Boys.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, what's the other one, Stuart? Help me.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's another.
Were you in Bonjour?
What? We did 3 together? I didn't know. I thought we just did 2. Did we do
It seemed like 3.
reading? It seemed like 3, yes.
I'd have to look at my resume.
Before we get to our next guest, let's take a look at a clip.
On the magic train of dreams and ride through the night, put aside through the night all the cares of the day. Lulled by wheels that hum, you'll find sweet sleep will come and dreams will carry you away. Ride through tunnels underground, then fly through the night, way up high through the night, looking down on the town. You won't dream alone, for someone's by your side.
Listen to her voice.
Oh
Her
my God.
voice is so good.
Elise,
Sounds
so good.
I was
We didn't know.
I can remember I was supposed to be doing something like looking down or something or sleeping or something. And I just couldn't bear it. I just had to look up at you and go, your voice is thrilling. It's thrilling. I can't bear it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I loved singing this score so much. I still sing a lot of the licks from the show, just around, as Eric was saying, like around the house. It gets in your head, and it's such a beautiful score. And isn't it funny to watch yourself? Like, it's such an interesting thing, especially right now, because it's like a feeling that I know, a feeling of being with people and collaborating with a group, and it's like, I look at it and I'm like, gosh, I know that feeling and I miss it. It's like a little bitter with the sweet, and it just makes me want to do it all over again. Also, because we are short a few cast members, I do just want to say David Engel, Carl Joseph Coe, and Katie McCreary were also a part of our cast. David Josephsberg, did I say that?
No.
I did not say that. David Josephsberg. I meant to say 4 people that were part of our cast. David, Carl, Katie, and Dave. David, Carl, Katie, and David.
Actually, we have some photographs that include the whole cast. We could look at them now just to bring back further memories.
Never seen the sun. What a surprise. When I opened my eyes, there was sunlight and sky. And beginning that day, I discovered a world, such a wonderful world. Every day is Thanksgiving, now that I'm living my way.
It looks so sleek. Who knew it was put together in 5 days?
We did.
There are only certain people who can do that and have it
Jimmy,
turn out.
that clip you showed, the video projections in that clip were so successful. I had no idea.
Lacey Erb did the projections.
Brilliant job.
And the lighting was by Graham Kendrick. Did a beautiful job.
Gorgeous.
And of course, all the costumes are brought by the actors from home.
Look at those handbells. Remember those handbells in the
Oh, I love the
Christmas
handbells.
number?
We
Yeah.
have the hand. We have the handbells.
Was that my idea?
What a
It
great
might have
group.
been.
Oh my God, that's an awful idea. Whoever idea.
I think I'm guilty.
Stuart.
Sure.
Opening night. Look at that.
Look at that. Margaret.
Just
Tina, Phyllis, and Margaret.
Also, you know, a couple of people too that really make these muftis what they are our stage management team. And, you know, we had Shayna Allison and Chris Steckel. And I got
Yes.
to work with Chris then on the day before spring.
Another mufti.
Yes, another mufti. But really, the stage management,
Yeah.
They can make or break one of these shows. It's
Yes,
put together so quickly. If it's not done carefully and precisely, and they are two of the best. We've had a lot of wonderful stage managers for
Yes.
this series.
Shayna
Finding
and Chris were
wonderful
so good
directors,
to us.
stage managers, music directors are essential for this series, and we are
Yes.
grateful to all of them, except the ones that weren't successful. We won't go into that. Our other very special guest tonight is a gentleman who happily was part of our production in 2018, representing the Julie Stein estate, Mr. Jason Buell.
Yeah, Jason.
Yes, I'm the archivist at the Julie Stein estate. I've been so grateful to have been able to keep working during all of this. So that's been fantastic. There's just always more Julie Stein stuff to restore and archive. So that's fantastic. I'm working from home now on the Upper West Side. And it's kind of nice to be home during the holidays. You know, so many years I'm in the office or away from anything Christmassy during the season. So it's nice to be home and have Christmas music going and be part of the season again. So, but as far as the show goes, I'm kind of responsible for restoring it. It has always been a score that has been one of my favorites. And when I started working at the Stein office in 2008, it was one of the first things I sought out. And it was kind of in a lot of different boxes all over the place in really bad shape. And I just spent the next couple of years on my own time, just bringing it back to life and matching up the final materials and with the various scripts and getting it all to kind of glued back together. And then bringing it when the York decided to do the production, Stuart and Jim were so kind to bring me on board as a production consultant. So I was kind of in the mix with, you know, working on the book and working with David on the music. And having seen the show, you know, I know the cast album and seeing it on paper and living it in music only for so many years, my favorite memories are of rehearsals and hearing these glorious voices sing this material. I will never forget hearing Elise sing Girls Like Me, and I was just floored. I was like, the richness of her voice. I was like, and then hearing the guys sing Subways Are for Sleeping and that quartet that Kilty was talking about, you know, it was so gratifying to know that the music was in such good hands. And I think we really did Julie proud in that regard. And the other one, quick memory that I had that I loved was towards the end of rehearsals, the book, one of the major problems of the book has always been the ending, that it just all comes together so fast and nothing is really explained. And Stuart had really tried to make that work. And then David and I, we're sitting at the piano and we're trying to work out the final song of What Is This Feeling and do something different with it. And we were like, it felt like Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney moment. We're standing at the piano and like, no, let's do this. Oh no, we'll cut this and we'll do some dialogue. We'll bring this in here. And it was just a really magical moment. And I was just so proud to see everything on stage. Everyone did such a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can add that Jason, you know, works at the Julie Stein office. So this score that he made, the piano vocal score he made of Subways Are for Sleeping, is sort of the holy grail in the musical theater world. So after shows, people would come up to me and say, oh, what are you working off of? Is that a brand new finale, like recently typeset score? And I'd be like, yes, it is. And no one has seen anything like this because Jason did all that labor. pretty much all himself, inputting the score into a fresh new copy. So we really have Jason to thank for that. And everyone still wants it. And so we got to have that, and that helped so much. And it was just sort of funny because all these boy kind of music directors would come up and be like, what are you playing off of? Like, where'd you get that, man? Like, you know, it was great.
I need my fix.
You should sell it, Jason. Make some money.
I should. Well, that was something that the office didn't pay me for. I did that on my own time because I just had such love for it. So that's why I'm so protective. I'm like, I haven't been paid for that.
Exactly. Yeah. So labor of love.
And thank God for it. Before we go back to Charles for some further historical background, let's hear the number with the towel that's too long.
From Mississippi, not there where I come from, not Massachusetts, not Minnesota, but Mississippi. There I was born, one frosty morn, right around dawn. They said, my oh my, but this baby's somebody pretty. Mark my words, she'll wind up in Atlantic City. I grown up and showed up, I'm blown up in all the right directions. Won the local contest. Show us your bone, she'll be queen in Atlantic City. Things were fairly skipping in the honeysuckle dripping when I left my dear old mammy side. I went in with my singing, dancing inside. They said, my, she's so excited. She's Miss Jackson City's bride. Ta-ta-ta-ta, I was a shoe when I'm from Mississippi. Who wouldn't say yes? Then when you got the surrender by the Robert E. Lee.
That was like trying to tame a wild bull. It was the best. What a challenge. Thank you so much, Stuart, for letting me do that number.
I was just smart in letting you do it.
From the beginning, when we started talking about doing the show, you said Gina's the person to play this. And
then,
I kept fighting you, but
no, you didn't. But we had to do a reading for Phyllis and Margaret of the original, I think, before we started going into the news. Was the original the final Broadway script we read, or was it the revision we started doing? I don't remember. But we had to do it in her apartment. We hadn't finished casting, but I knew I wanted to give Gina I wanted Gina, so we brought Gina in to do that in Phyllis's apartment. And who else was in that? Danny Reichert and John from Tootsie. What was his name? And his wife. Before we had, I think, even started casting.
Well, and I remember that afternoon very well because we were over there a lot. I was over there a lot doing Hallelujah Baby and this, working with her on both of those. Charles, let's turn it back over to you for some more background and perspective.
Well, I want to bring Stuart into this as well. I didn't mention the producer at the beginning of the show. Beth brought him up. That, of course, is the abominable showman, David Merrick. He's a guy who even 20 years after his death can suck all the oxygen out of the room. So I thought we could save him for later. But he had wanted, for much of his career, he said, to pull a trick on the Broadway community, and this show gave him a chance to do it. He was waiting for Brooks Atkinson to retire from the Times to do this. Stuart, would you tell us about the David Merrick, Harvey Savinson gimmick, the promotional gimmick?
Yeah, David Merrick got people who had the same names as the critics, and they brought them in to see the show, and then he had them say quotes, how they liked the show, and then he put out I think Charles said, a $25,000 ad in 1961, a full-page ad in the New York Times and the Herald Tribune with all the quotes. I think we have a picture of it. And the New York Times copy editor had gotten hold of it and saw it and stopped it from going. They figured out what was going on, but the Herald Tribune didn't, and it ran in the morning edition of the Herald Tribune. Some of the people they got didn't like the show and wouldn't let them quote it. I mean, just some of the normal people with the names didn't like the show and wouldn't let David Merrick, they wouldn't say they liked it. So he had to get other people with the same names.
The Times actually was a spoiler. The copy editor caught it and made calls to the other 7 papers or the 6 other papers in that day when there were a lot of newspapers, dailies in New York. But the Herald Tribune had already gone out, so it ran in just the early edition on January 4th, 1962.
And then there's the little thing, they had to take all their posters down for advertising the show from the subways because people were taking it as a directive that go ahead, sleep in the subway. And the Department of Transit didn't.
I've never heard of it.
Didn't like it, so they took down the posters.
As clever as that was, I think it worked against the show. That they were so desperate for it to be a hit when it wasn't. And if the work had just been done on it up front, as you and Phyllis were able to do to sort of help shape it, it might have had a different outcome. But things were very different then. It wasn't.
Well, I think the fact that he did it made it seem like the show was no good, as opposed to just okay, pleasant. So he made it seem like it was a bigger disaster than I believe it was.
Well, I think Merrick was spoiling to pull this trick on the New York theater community and the critical community. Stuart, you and I talked about Comden and Green earlier, and you had some interesting things to say about why you thought that they weren't ideal for turning a series of character sketches into a musical. I mean, it wasn't unheard of to have short stories and character sketches as the basis of a musical. South Pacific, My Sister Eileen, those are examples.
Well, they created Tom and Angela, that love story, which didn't exist in the books. They brought somebody from the outside world into the underground world, and they didn't give them any real reason to exist, or there was no clock ticking, there was no urgency, there was no arc to a story that they were trying to infuse on those short stories, and just taking it simple and truthful, and just and in 4 days, that's the hardest thing. It's easy to stage, be a Santa as part of it, but it's hard to get, I can't remember the name of it, the duet, the song that wasn't a duet that we made a duet for you too.
Right.
Who knows what might have been?
Who knows what might have been, which turned into one of the nicest moments in the whole show, and it brought a warmth, and you brought that to it. But the original people didn't give them anything to work with. Plus, Michael Kidd apparently, according to Phyllis, overstaged everything, and there were dances everywhere, and everything was dancing and moving and pushing and shoving, and they rehearsed all these dances. And there is no real character dance production number in the show. Once in a Lifetime didn't even have a chorus. We added that. We made that because it should be one. They only did it in French because Sidney Chaplin couldn't dance, but he could speak French. So they wrote it in French. So that made me think to put it in the French wing, just to help out, to give the Mufti audience some fun. So it gives a little fighting chance to all the glories of the show, which is the whole point of the Muftis. Did I say enough?
Absolutely. Never, maybe that's what I should say, never enough.
Never enough.
Let's take a minute and hear another clip.
When you help a friend out, when you help a friend in distress. When you help a friend out, when you help a friend out, you can wind up in a mess. What are we doing here? Singing harmony by ear. Yesterday we hadn't even met. What a strange dream.
I love that. I love
Swinging. It's like swinging.
Well, this show had all these cover albums. Dave Grusin's first album was jazz songs from Subways Over Sleeping, and Percy Faith did a Subways Over Sleeping album, and the McGuire sisters did a Subways Over Sleeping album, and Judy Garland sang Come Once in a Lifetime on her TV show. Oh, she had a big cover from it.
And the title of the show inspired a pop hit, Don't Sleep in the Subway Darling by
Petula Clark.
Petula Clark performed it. I'm trying to remember who.
Who wrote it?
Jackie Trent was the composer and Tony Hatch.
Interesting. How many of the cast knew this score before you did this show, this production with us? Oh, that's great. That's great. Or maybe that's not great. I don't know.
It's not great when you have 4 days.
That's true.
And I can't believe we didn't, because honestly, the music is just so spectacular in this show. I'm kind of floored that we didn't know it.
Great. I mean, and that song, just that clip that we just heard, is so swinging. I mean, you hear how Julie Stein was literally in Chicago when people were inventing jazz, like down the street. Like, I think he was born in 1900. Am I right? Right. So like his whole 20s, I feel like he was just in, like absorbing the sound. And at the same time, he has this classical background too that allows him to tap into the ballads as well and get really beautiful sound as well. But the swing, I mean, you're gonna find it. It's hard to find a song that swings as hard as that song is Strange Duet. Like Frank Lesser sometimes can do that, but it's really swinging.
I remember some of those tricky rhythms.
And
Yes.
the greatest overture, one of the top 5 great overtures of all time.
Yeah, and that's like what I was trying to say in the beginning. It's like Phil Lang has like orchestrated like every show ever, and then he's like listens to this score from this crazy show, and he's like, hold on, like let's dig in. I mean, maybe Jason has more to talk about that orchestration. I know like bits were cut out of the overture, but the overture is thrilling just as a piece of music on its own, and encores use that overture when they did excerpts of shows that they're never going to do, but they picked this overture to highlight, you know.
Section of the Santa that's cut out of the overture. You hear it in the dance music, which we didn't do, but it mimics that. You know, and I think when we're talking about the music, we really have to give credit to Buster Davis as well for those vocal arrangements.
Unbelievable.
Those tight harmonies are just amazing.
Right on.
It's like they were working, you know, it's like Betty and Adolph were so busy and the production team busy trying to figure out the book. And so it was like the orchestrators and vocal arrangers didn't have anything else to do. So they just went full hog because they had the time, and they just went like insane.
They just like killed it. They're like, we're just going to kill this. This music is too good.
Whatever. God love him.
And speaking of vocal things too, we also, one thing that was unique to our this production was we put back a section of What Is This Feeling in the Air, that kind of a cappella section that I don't think we ever went into the show, but I found it in the trunks of material, and we put that back in. So that was kind of a unique thing to have that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded great, but I think when we tried to teach it to everyone, they were like, la 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 la. It's just like a Bach, like 5-part fugue, and everyone's like,
We're like, we have 5 minutes to do this. Let's go.
It's day 4. Get out of my way.
Watching the archival, I went, oh my God, I wonder why I didn't think of it. Because there wasn't time. I wished I'd done a real big pullback and did a whisper chorus of it.
Oh,
and pulled it back into a really energetic boom. And then
That's my wish, is that we just had more time, period. I wish we could have run longer. It was so, just when we started having like the best time ever, it was over.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, about you talking with Phyllis about future life for the show and hoping that would happen. But let's listen to another, talk about a feel-good moment. Listen to this next clip.
Santa, jolly Santa, happy Santa, give the world a Merry Christmas, be Kris Kringle, bells a jingle, what you bring, oh, give the world a Merry Christmas, be a good old-fashioned symbol, Father Saxon, Father Kimball, be a Santa Claus.
Jerry, you are like disco Santa. You make me pee.
My favorite,
God.
Oh
my favorite part is spotting. I did all those turns and I had to spot. That's it. And then Eric and I
Oh
were
my God.
on the great stage. Eric just made me laugh. But we were just because we love the number.
I just love that it goes Russian for no reason, for absolutely no reason.
Oh my God.
I'm like crying about that. I don't know why. It's in the score. We were making it up.
But go with it, because like what theater doesn't make sense? It makes sense is the booby prize, you know.
And of course, that number is based on the Salvation Army Santas that used to be everywhere at this time of year in New York and every big city, maybe every city, which is not the case anymore. The other thing to note out of that, we've mentioned this is a mufti. For those of you watching who really don't know what that means, these are very quickly put together concert versions of shows. And they're basically put together in 5 days. The new schedule allows them to run for 11 performances, which allows them to grow and actually have a semblance of performance. And when you get an incredible cast like this, when a wonderful director and music director, amazing things can happen, and they do regularly. But
I remembered, Jimmy,
What?
I remember my other one. I remember it was High Spirits.
Oh, High Spirits, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And the cool thing about the Muftis is that you bring together all of these amazing people. I mean, for High Spirits, we had Tammy Grimes hanging out with us a couple of times. But like I was talking about Margaret Stein talking to us. She's an amazing woman giving stories. And we had Phyllis and we have Jason. I mean, we just, all of these resources, that's what's so brilliant about what you guys do with these.
Well, thank you. Our main emphasis, as many people know, is on new musicals. But I think that what makes us unique is the mix of old and new, that you can learn from the past as you are writing for the future. And yes, some of these shows didn't have great beginnings for whatever reason, and there are all sorts of stories. But when you have Julie Stein writing even one of his less successful shows, there is so much to learn from it. And we firmly believe that's one of the bases of the Mufti series. Another thing I wanted to mention in that clip we just watched, something that's become sort of a trademark of the series, are the rolling music stands. And they are the creation of Mr. Stuart Ross.
I created them for Minnie's Boys. But I did want to say the genius of the York is that you found a way to be able to do these shows and enrich us all with them without spending a fortune. And, you know, and give them a little light and, you know, lift up the bushel, you know, and let them breathe. And, you know, a select few of us, I mean, I wish it could be a little more people involved and a little longer runs. But to go encores and, you know, the unions, and I mean, though, you know, having to do it so big and be so, you know, constrained by having to sell out a huge Broadway house, it's magic the way you figured that out. That's all, period.
Well, it's what's amazing how it's evolved over the years with the input from all sorts of people, like your idea of the rolling music stands and other people saying, why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? And it's evolved into a pretty amazing process. Let's look at another little clip here.
I just can't wait till I see you with clothes on for dining, dancing, and all kinds of sports. A pretty gown with some ribbons and bows on, a ski suit with snowshoes, a spacesuit with helmet and flippers and snorkel, a parka, a sari, some joggers, but not a bikini or shorts. No thrill for me when I can see I'd like you wrapped up in a veil of mystery.
So fun.
The lyrics to that song are incredible.
What a song. I mean, so many of these songs are just so wonderful. The lyrics, the storytelling. I just don't understand why it didn't do better than it did, really. I mean, aside from all the amazing facts that our historians told us, but it really is a good musical.
Well, the other thing is we were approaching it. Charles, you may want to go into this, but Stuart and Phyllis were talking about, you say it's a musical about homeless people in New York that today has a different, it was a quirky, interesting idea when it was originally done, and now it has a very different feel. And then the question was, how could it be treated? How could the material be treated so that the subject matter has weight and depth and respect for the people who are being talked about? Stuart, do you want to talk about that? Or Charles, do you want to go down that road a little bit?
I went down that road with Phyllis a lot. And, you know, you either do it as a, you know, it really wasn't about homelessness then as it was about this underground world. And, you know, today we're looking at a bunch of, you know, a musical comedy about people who chose to be homeless. It seems a little glib. I mean, a little dismissive. I mean, to think about it that way, but to find another way to think about it, I think it would be fine. You know, as that what their original intention was. But now that homelessness is such a huge, it's such a deep, deep problem and an issue that another form, it really, Phyllis and I were trying to find, you know, that out of this situation that all these homeless people and people who were lost faced, blossomed this new organization. That's what I came up with, that spread hands across the world to help people help themselves. It was not about, I was just trying to get to the ending, but really it was, that's how we wanted to take it. And I had come up with a couple of other ways that would have been too involved to frame it.
Someone who saw it originally said to me after seeing this production that the original had wonderful moments, but it didn't add up to anything. And he said, this is like they found what was inside it all the time and just let it loose and let the heart out. And he gave such credit to you, but also to the cast that made these into real people. So it was not in any way like caricatures.
No.
Anyone? Or you can just agree and move
yes, and.
Well, yeah, because I mean, just with Eric and Elise, I mean, they made these lead characters that, as we discussed in the original production, had a really rough go of it for many reasons. These two fiercely talented people brought their hearts, and with Stuart and Phyllis's magic, I mean, that's a recipe for success right there. I'd watch them two sing the telephone book.
Thank you, Gina. The feeling's mutual.
Absolutely.
And put out a CD called The Telephone Book.
That's it. That's what we're doing in quarantine. But also a thing that was special about this specific thing is because we had permission and Stuart and Phyllis were working on it, that it felt like a new musical to us. And that's something also, we didn't really have any awareness of what the material was. And B, we had the permission to try all these new things. So part of it, which is something that we do, and everybody on the Zoom does, is we do this with new musicals. That's something that we do as musical theater actors. We do these readings and we're like, well, we'll try this, we'll build this. So by the time we were up and running for those 11 performances, it felt like we were putting on a new musical. And so it was very satisfying in that way,
I agree.
And we got to take that moment and turn a moment that I never understood on the album, how do you describe a face, into an extraordinary moment because of that guy, that Mr. Jerry McIntyre, and, the spirit, between you two. And, also the other thing was David Joe, another actor. I told Gina to just imagine all these things that he's putting you in, and you get to be this princess in this fairyland that he's describing with sports clothes and tiaras and big gowns and things. And it's just, this guy is dressing you up like a princess. And in a normal show, the guy would say, what is she stealing my number? But no, she's saying yes, and she's buying it. She believed his dream. It was so easy just to say a half a sentence to Gina and she runs with it.
Why don't we go back and catch a little bit of how do you describe a face?
She's wearing a brown coat and black shoes. Eyes of brown. Or were they blue? Her hair a cloud, the sun shone through. Her mouth was sad, yet somehow gay. It's very hard to say how she looked, how she spoke, how she smiled. Her smile had such a special glow, I can't begin to tell you, though I'm trying. How can you describe?
Bravo.
Oh, good.
Gary, I never really got to look at everything you were doing because I was singing. I want to see the whole thing. You just made that a whole different thing. I was trying to read the music and act. I can't see what you're doing. That was so.
Sweetie, I swear, then I calmed down. I
was saying it. I'm saying it was so full because of you listening. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. And Eric, a friend of mine, my dear friend of mine, Chris Laveley, said, because when I go over there and I just look at you and then I'm looking out where you're looking out, he said that was like, he goes, the best moment that I did in the show, because he was like, you were silent and you were just listening to him just describe this image, and you were just looking at where he was looking, and the two of you got together. And I mean, I thought my work before was better, but as it turns out, not so much.
Barry, what was that one line that you had in the show that was literally like just a line and you just had a home run with it every single night? It was so funny. What was
I think it was that thing with the, you know, the armor. I think. I don't remember.
all I know is it was just
When you were a cop, did you say something?
I mean, it's so long. I don't remember the story. I remember I did something with that armor, with that, you know, with the put on that chuka, and then like,
Jerry, don't get modest now.
Too late.
Kilty was Kilty. We were trying. Me, Kilty, and David Ego were trying so hard for comedy. We were just like backstage, like, how about this?
But I have to say, Stuart, like that's the thing. We knew through direction, we knew when it was time to highlight that, and just like in that clip, when to step aside and to allow the moment to really happen. And there was something I felt, even though it's a revival of an older show, the scene work and all of that felt really contemporary, juxtaposed to this beautiful score that evoked a time past. And I think abutting those together was really special and smart.
That's the goal always.
Yeah.
Except for the dog. Remember the dog?
Yeah, the leash.
I love the
empty
dog.
leash.
That was
I love the
amazing.
dog. I love the dog. It's like, who needs a real dog? You know, it's the joy of a mufti.
Yeah.
So, someone, Stuart, describe the dog moment, if you would, or anyone.
Yeah, the dog moment. We saw it in the trailer a little bit. Eric's character, Tom, had a job. One of his steady jobs was walking somebody's dog. And Elise's character sees him with the dog. But instead of, we had a leash with a dog collar that was stiff. It was a stiff leash with I'm getting into so much trouble.
No, it was like a clown bit. It was like an empty dog leash that we were following around.
Yeah, where he was walking with the dog.
It was
funny.
It was such a great bit.
It was a great bit, and you played it. Elise played it as if there was, you know, this spectacular Pomeranian at the end of the leash, and she totally believed that it was there. And Eric was all like, "Oh my God, he's pulling me."
I'm glad that you picked up.
They just got it. I mean, you know how long when people don't get it, how long it takes in rehearsal to try to explain the bit, and then I'm already like off directing the next show in my head. What are we doing? But you guys got it, and Jerry and I were fortunate and are laughing. They got it. It all worked. It was delightful. And this was a joy, and I can't wait to work again and to work with you guys. God, I tried with Elise once, but we couldn't a year ago, and then it got canceled, so it didn't matter.
Speaking of working again, what was so exciting out of this was you and Phyllis and Margaret, I'm sure, talking about a future life for this. The show that had sat on a shelf in the Stein office for years, with people sort of wondering about it or writing it off. And that this small production captured something that no one else had seen in it before, so much so that there was hope for something else happening with it.
I know. I remember Bob Kimball, the head of whatever, the Porter estate, or the he's the main advisor for them. Other things, and he said, "You have to keep working on this. You have to keep working on this." I'm like, all right. But we go to a university and get them. Phyllis wanted me to go to NYU and get them to work on it as a new project, to show them how to save a musical and rebuild a musical. And I had done that 3 times at CAP 2021 with 3 different shows of mine. And there's just so much you can, hours in the day without support that you can go try to do that. But never.
David, do you have anything to add to that idea of it moving forward?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's just something, because we had the caliber of singers that we did, of artists, of Stuart kind of guiding us through this whole thing. The energy in the room was just conducive towards all of us collaborating to make the most highest quality artistic product that we could. When I was playing these songs, I felt like I was just entering into, how can I say it, as like a one-time jazz musician, like I was just in the zone. I was in the pocket. It just all felt right. And it was like exactly where I wanted to be at that moment. And there was musical communication that was going on between me as the piano player and my bass player. I added a bass player onto this, and the singers. That is always what I'm striving for when I do musical theater. I think musical theater is often cliched as a music director giving very direct decisions on how every consonant and how every word should end. And a lot of that, we did a little bit of that, but for the most part, there was an unspoken musical communication between everyone, which I think is one of the goals of music. And I think the audience heard that and they responded to that feeling in the air. What's that feeling in the air that we created together? And I don't know, it was just very beautiful memory. In the middle, like thinking back on it, like everything was going on, then we decided to do this show and then we're running off to the next thing. And now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, it was just gorgeous. I don't know why. It's such a strange show about people living on subways, but I don't know. It's just beautiful and makes me feel good.
Charles, looking at this piece in retrospect and context of what it has been through, what do you see as possibilities for it?
You know, the title itself is something to overcome. Apparently in the 60s, it was an amusing notion, subways are for sleeping. And Edmund Love's book was very successful. And so it probably didn't seem that odd to have a Broadway musical announced as Subways Are for Sleeping. It's now, with what we know about homelessness, it is a troubled or challenging title to sell. But the show has such possibilities, as everybody said, the score, and I think Stuart's notion of how to change the direction of it so that the conclusion is life affirming. I think there's a very good chance that it could have more life. I hope it will.
We could call it Off the Grid or something.
Or In Transit.
Yes, intransitive.
We have another clip to share with everyone that will send your heart soaring.
If only these walls could talk.
What shall we do?
Well, while they are eating their cake, let's sing another chorus.
What the chorus?
Every day, just go along until sundown. Here's the rundown. Every day that comes once in a lifetime. Take each day and gather the rosebuds in it. Fill each minute. Every day that comes once in a lifetime. Think of now. Tomorrow is waiting in the wings. Who knows what it brings?
truly magical.
I don't speak French like Sidney Chaplin. I just wanted to throw that out there.
You
I
better
was going
not.
to ask,
But
did you?
You better
funny-
not.
You're funny and you can act.
Hello.
Like the
Hello.
phonetics that I was scribbling on the script was just like, vous, sang. It was awful. Anyway.
No, it's good.
Oh, that was you, Beth, wasn't it?
What?
Did you help us out with that? Were you doing this because you helped us out with the phonetic stuff?
No, I was writing phonetics all over
Good.
the place.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
poor Kelsey had to deal with me in the picture frame.
Stuart kept saying, Kilty,
Okay.
get more in the frame. And I was just like, I've got to read my book. So my book was hanging out of the frame. And every day he'd be like, you need to be in the frame. And I was like, I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, you saw it. Of course.
No, I get it, but it made me laugh. I'm like, oh, I see what he's saying now. But we were all struggling at that moment, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Stuart,
You weren't even supposed to be in the number. There was no chorus in that.
yeah, and just to reiterate, make sure the audience, they've heard it once, but this is not where the number was supposed to take place. It's brilliant what Stuart did. We're in, the French ring, the Rococo wing of whatever, the Met Museum, and everyone comes to life. All the paintings come to life. It's fantastic. It's such a great idea. Stuart has ideas.
You're a mufti, but if you're going to do that in a real show, you have to follow through. You have to, there has to be something that outrageous at the top and the middle and the thing.
Right.
You can get away with it.
Right. That would be
But
amazing.
I could figure that. We can all figure
Of
that.
course you could figure it out.
Well, I'm afraid we're approaching the end of our little reunion. Anyone who has a final statement or comment or anything is welcome to speak up now. If Charles, do you have a statement to wrap up the entire proceeding with a bow, with a Christmas
Well, I think
bow?
this is a good example of what the Muftis do so well, allowing us to see what there is in shows that we've heard about, that we're aware of, but that we have never had a chance to really experience. And it's interesting that there may be future life for this. So that this is what the Muftis can achieve. It's a wonderful thing.
Thank you all for being a part of it and bringing this show to life for our audiences. A warm virtual hug of gratitude to all. Thanks to our special guests, without whom none of us would be here. Thank you, Charles, and thank you all so much for joining us. In just a moment, a final video clip which will put a smile on your face, just as it did our Mufti audiences in 2018. I'd like to take a minute to express appreciation to the entire York Theatre Company staff, who all in one way or another made this event happen. Pushing buttons behind the scenes and admirably pulling the cast together, our creative consultant, Hans Friedrichs. And another essential cog in bringing these conversations to you is our artistic associate at the controls as we speak, navigating the Zoomscape, Fiona Sweeney. And a special thanks to Nicholas Garrity for his magnificent editing. If you enjoyed this, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to the York Theatre Company to help keep these programs happening. Please click the link in the chat feature to donate. We all hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation, and now one more musical moment from Subways Are for Sleeping. Enjoy.
What is that distant sound I hear? Like a rum-tum-a-tum of a drum coming near. It seems to say that something is on its way. With a crash and a boom, it soon will be here, make room. A new kind of feeling we can share. All around, all around, all around, all around, everywhere. Oh, what is this feeling in the air? It's a day on the wind, like a feeling of spring.
wasn't that great? It's great to hear that again. But Stuart, that reminds me, you had a comment about the last line of that song that I think is really wonderful and everyone should hear it.
The last line of that song, hope is the sound and the feeling that is new in the air. You can barely hear it because the boisterousness of the cast and you know, there's so much going on at the same time, but I don't even think that Compton and Green and Julie Stein and Michael Kidd, they realized that that was the key to the whole show, that they take a group of people that have, you know, are hopeless and sad, and they bring hope to the whole community. And that's what the show seems to be about. And I think, you know, taking another look at the show, that has to be the arc, and you have to build the show around that as the ultimate goal, is bringing hope. And hope is the sound and the feeling that is new in the air. It's like, you know, wasn't that Obama's big poster?
Yes.
And our poster, and hope. And that's also what I think, that's what the joy of Christmas and that time of year and this time of year is. Hope and the potential possibilities. And
that is brilliant. I don't think anyone has ever captured the meaning of this show so perfectly. It adds layers of depth to this show that I think no one realized was ever there. But we do have one more song to share with everyone that I think will just send us out on an even higher note. And here it is.
Subways are for sleeping, and so are so many other places. Lofts and cellars and fire escapes, car lots, museums, and excavations. When the night comes creeping, find an empty baggage car. For if you know your way around, overhead and underground, from the Jersey to the Long Island Sound, you can sleep wherever you are. Sleep wherever you are.
Yes! Bravo. Bravo. Thank you all so much. See
Thank
you all
you.
soon. Have a lovely
Thank you.
holiday.
That was a blast. Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much.
Happy holidays, guys.